It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. And to be or not to be. It's such a well-known phrase, and yet it was written in the late 1500s. William Shakespeare is regarded as one of the greatest drama writers in recorded English language history. His work has lived on in society through the centuries, and today's writers and directors have found ways to keep his works alive. Shakespeare in Detroit has made a name for itself for being the premier space to enjoy classical performances. Beginning as an initiative in 2012 under the name Shakespeare Against Cancer, the group traveled across Michigan hospitals, healing through classical performances. A year later, Shakespeare in Detroit hosted the city's first ever Shakespeare in the Park experience. And since then, the grassroots organization has expanded its offerings, working with kids and teens and helping the next generation of theater lovers find their niche. Next week, as part of the company's intimate 2025 Fall Limited Run series, Jane Anger will make its Michigan debut. The dark comedy takes place in the 1600s during the plague and follows a young woman who is using her wit to ask larger questions about society at the time. Samantha White, the founding artistic and executive director of Shakespeare in Detroit, is also the director of Michigan's premiere of Jane Anger. So Samantha joins us on the show right now. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. So Jane Anger is a dark comedy written by Talene Monahan. Shakespeare Theater Company already has put the show on. So what about Jane Anger made you want to bring it to Michigan?
Well, I love the story of the main character because it really asks the question, who gets credit for what? And oftentimes, like the main character, a lot of marginalized communities, specifically Black communities, don't get credit for the innovation and creativity that we often offer. And so that's what the show is about, but we get to do it while laughing. And laughing is such great medicine, and laughing is such a great connector of people and folks from different communities that I thought, oh, this is a perfect show for us in this time right now.
Especially in the time that we have right now, because we are seeing so many arts programs being cut. We're seeing so many arts programs losing funding and watching them just honestly disappear. And it's really, really heartbreaking to see. So just talk about the importance of having that fall season this year, especially, like you said, making sure that people are learning, but they're also laughing.
It's critical. It's a critical time, hard to deal with, you know, and so because it's so hard to laugh, we wanted to present something that really forces you to do so. But the thing about Shakespeare in Detroit, which is what we're really proud of, is that our very first show was 3 weeks after the city filed for bankruptcy. So we're sort of conditioned and built for this. And in a time where a lot of folks are, unfortunately, a lot of theater companies and other creative or arts institutions have to cancel, we have been training ourselves to deal with difficult situations. And when our local government was having a difficult time, we couldn't depend on them for funding. And so we set a financial cadence for ourselves to be resilient no matter what happened through the bankruptcy, through the pandemic, and now through these times. So we don't take financial risk, we take creative risk, and we're mindful about budgeting. And I think that's been the reason why no matter what happens, Shakespeare in Detroit is going to show up, because we understand that rather than having to pivot, we have to lean into purpose. And so here we go with Jane Anger. Yes.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So when directing Jane Anger, did you ever have in your mind any thought about the Detroit audience? Do you adapt it or change it a little bit to fit and suit where you are? Or do you just kind of roll with what's already there for you?
Well, there's so many women like Jane Anger in our community, so many just dope women. And we actually have a social media campaign that recognizes a lot of our local Jane Angers who have really innovated and brought a lot of energy and creativity to the city, like Carla Walker Miller from Walker Miller Energy Services, like Angelique Power from Skillman Foundation, you know, like Shauna Hayward from Connect Detroit. I mean, there's so many women like myself, you know. And so those are the local Jane Angers that we have. So we've been able to connect our local community with people like those women. And there's 8 others who I haven't named, but people should check it out on Shakespeare in Detroit social media channels. So we didn't adapt it, but rather we connected our local stories to this work by Talene Monahan. Yeah.
And I just think it's so interesting once again because, and we're going to get into it, of course, but you've been able to adapt something that may seem, untouchable, unreachable for a lot of people. And you've turned it into something that anyone could sit down and watch and enjoy,
Yeah.
especially even though this one is particularly for those over the age of 17.
Yeah. language alert.
It might not be the best for the whole family.
Don't bring the kids.
But you've been able to adapt it. So, talk about how you are able to do that, because so many people would think to themselves or hear Shakespeare and think, oh, that's not going to be for me, but it's been adapted for you. So just talk about how you can bring those folks in, especially those who don't see themselves in this space.
Yeah, everybody's welcome at Shakespeare in Detroit. I'm from the city. I'm from 7 Mile. And so I feel like that's the perfect place to be from, to really understand and connect with Shakespeare. And back in the day, this was long before 2020 when there were more initiatives around inclusivity. Back in Shakespeare in Detroit's time, when we first started 2012, 2013, nobody was having those conversations, not even in Detroit. But I understood, being from just having the context that I have, being from 7 Mile and having a family and living a life, that if you have ever had anybody in your family pass away and there's been some drama, then you can recognize King Lear. If you've ever tried to date somebody and y'all weren't necessarily from the same neck of the woods, Romeo and Juliet is the show for you. If you had to hide who you were and you couldn't really express your identity and be who you are, then Rosalind from As You Like It, that's you. These are just stories. The dead dude, he's been gone for almost 500 years, William Shakespeare. So it's not about him. It's about the humanity of these stories. And Shakespeare in Detroit has been able to peel back those sort of barriers and the gatekeepers that sometimes want Shakespeare to be the way it's always been, and say, no, actually, these stories belong to all of us. And by the way, they're copyright free. So that tells you right there that anybody can do them. And so we did, and we will.
Yes. And you brought up 7 Mile, East West.
I'm from the northwest side, off Greenfield.
Okay, 7 in Greenfield, Joy and Southfield for me. So
exactly.
I love when we were able to connect in that way, and just remind folks that, Detroit has so many plethora of folks and different things that are happening. No matter where you're from, there's something for you out there. But we're talking about Jane Anger, a new stage play from Shakespeare in Detroit. Our guest is Samantha White, founder of Shakespeare in Detroit and director of Jane Anger. Now, when we think about Shakespeare in Detroit in general, you all have been going on since 2012. Like you said, you came up a little bit after the bankruptcy in Detroit, which is just amazing to think about, that you've been able to persevere since then. So let's just talk about your expansion, because you all have been able to launch so many different programs for kids, whether it's in the classroom or whether you have them doing performances themselves. So just talk about some of the work you've been able to do with kids.
Yeah, this year marked $100,000 in scholarships to Detroit kids. So a bunch of babies from the city, like you, like me, have been empowered to pursue their artistic dreams. So, most of the times, like sports programs, arts programs, you have to pay for entry.
Yes.
Not at Shakespeare in Detroit. And I have to shout out our funders, because we have the Fisher Foundation, the Walters Family Foundation, and the Gilbert Family Foundation, who have helped us pay that forward to the kids. Yeah. But about 3,000 kids we've been able to engage with total, and about 50 or so have received scholarships that equal about $100,000. You don't have to pay. We pay you. The art shouldn't be a burden to families. The art shouldn't be a burden to, our community. And because schools are still finding their way back into the arts, a lot of schools don't have theater programs. We give it to you. We supplement those opportunities for schools. And so I'm grateful for that, because the kids look like me. I could be their mama or auntie or cousin, so to be able to give it back to our community so intentionally is everything.
Which, I went to a high school, it wasn't in Detroit, but I went to a high school that did not have theater. So I wasn't able to flex that muscle at that time, because it just wasn't, and I graduated high school in 2010, so you weren't even around yet. So, it's just like a few of us missed that little gap, but I would have loved an opportunity to express myself on stage. So that would have been something. So I love that these kids have this opportunity to, once again, find another lane for themselves to express themselves creatively and outwardly, because so many places try to stamp that out of us. So
exactly. And in a time where urban communities are kind of being looked at or sort of positioned as being places of like chaos, we push back against that with the arts, right? Because the thing about the arts is medicine. Like Jane Anger, it's hilarious, it has a message in it about sort of who has a voice and whose genius gets to be shown or portrayed in society, but it's hilarious. And on the weekend, we're up against lions and tigers, literally the sports teams, right? But right in the center of downtown at the Marlene Bowl Theater is going to be us, because urban cities are not violent. I mean, there's violence everywhere, right? We are epicenters of art, of love, of light, of energy, of creativity, of artistry. So don't forget about the arts, y'all.
Don't forget about the arts. And personally, Samantha, what did Shakespeare in Detroit do for you? What has it done for you, especially working with it since 2012, like you said, and just going through the ebbs and flows of what we've been able to experience in the city of Detroit this past decade or so? What has it meant to you?
It still means everything to me. I think I'm a example specifically for kids who now have lived through a pandemic, lived through a bankruptcy, are now living through a lot of chaos, that with some resilience and also some strategy, you can still make your dreams come true. And they're up against a lot. Young people now are up against a lot more than I was up against. And I'm from 7 Mile, and they're up against even more.
Much more.
I mean, I love 7 Mile, but I'm just saying. So the arts, I think the thing that means the most to me is that I've been able to provide an example. And my mom always used to say, you always take care of home first. And so I've taken care of my life and community in Detroit. And all the other things that come with my life over the next few years are just a cherry on top, because I took care of my people, my folks, my fellow Detroiters.
Yes. And before we get off of the kids and we get off of that, because I did want to talk a little bit about this past year's summer conservatory, about 5 or 6 weeks. But when I was looking at some of the photos and looking at some of the work that was being done with the kids, the teens, I said, these look like professionals on stage now. So can you just, talk us through that program and what it's been like, especially teaching the kids, not just being on stage, but behind the scenes, and what it means to be in the production and be on the production team. Like, there are so many other ways that you can be in this field without being on stage.
Yeah, I mean, the program is exceptional. You can say I'm biased, but I'm also just speaking facts. It's you can definitely do more than just be on stage. So our STEAM program is the science of lights, the technology of sound, the engineering of a costume, because you have to be an engineer to make a costume from the 16th, 17th century. The art, of course, of classical theater, and then the mathematics of set building. If you don't know geometry, you're going to kill some actors. Your set going to fall apart because you don't know your math. And so it's all encompassing. So the kids have to learn all of those pillars plus present on stage. And our standards are high, because I have to tell you, Tia, sometimes when I sort of witness or observe programs for youth, I know that we want youth to feel comfortable in their environments and inclusive in their environments, but that's not at the diminishment of rigor, training, and high standards. And so we're able to make them feel included, because they are, and we want them with us. But the standards for Miss Sam, as they call me, are very, very high. And what happens is they don't just receive scholarships, they get confidence. That they can do things at a really high level. Yeah. And the teachers thank us, because they come back after the summer spent with us, and the teachers can see the difference, the parents can see the difference, and even their siblings sometimes want to join in, because they turn out different people because they've reached for the sky. So that's the thing about the program. And even some kids, they knew nothing about a lighting board, but we're able to express, share with them, how do you work lights? Yeah. And by the way, if anybody from, General Motors, Chrysler, or Ford are listening, if you can design lights for a show, then you can certainly tell a story in an automobile, right? Because all the lights on an automobile tell a different story on a car, right? The headlights are not like the dome lights. The dome lights are not like the interior lights. And so those same sensibilities transfer from theater into other industries. So theater is so much bigger than sometimes what I think people think it to be.
And because we're at the end of this conversation, I wanted to take a tangent on that one, because I love that you found these intersections of like science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and you've been able to connect them with theater, which is such a important skill to have. I don't think a lot of people understand that their skills are transferable. If they're especially creative skills, they're really transferable.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's an amazing thing. But before we get you out of here, I do want you to talk about Jane Anger one more time. Give folks the rundown about Jane Anger and why you're so excited about it.
I mean, it's only 90 minutes, so you can come see the show and get home and watch your favorite show on whatever streaming service. Come and enjoy it. Opening night is almost sold out, but there's plenty of tickets on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if people want to come. But it's such an interesting story. William Shakespeare is a character in the play. There's 2 other characters, Anne Hathaway and Francis Sir, who is William Shakespeare's apprentice. It's funny, it's smart, it's farcical. So if you like Monty Python, if you like the Three Stooges, even if you like Martin, yes, the TV show, because Martin was a mess. I love Martin, one of my favorite TV shows from the 90s. Then come check out Jane Eyre.
Martin, yes. Martin's one of my favorites as well. Yes. I was also a huge fan of the Three Stooges as well as Monty Python. So I think if anybody's listening right now, they would enjoy Jane Eyre. Yes. Samantha White is the founding artistic and executive director of Shakespeare in Detroit, and she's director of Michigan's debut of Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre is making its Michigan debut with 5 performances beginning next Thursday, October 16th at Bow Family YMCA. That's in downtown Detroit. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you, Tia.
Coming up, a new book following the life and times of fashion icon Virgil Abloh. We'll learn a little bit more about him and how he made history with a simple t-shirt. You all stay right there. This is The Metro.